Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we are going to be looking at another Demytha Unkillable team that has been created by some of the people out there in the community. This is great. This one is not created by my moderators, but brought to my attention by them. This one is by, let me get this right, Bluntguts. So he's either, got a really high belly, probably not that hungry when it comes down to it, right? But yeah, it's brought to by Bluntguts, and so my moderators brought it to my attention, and it's a very, very nice little team. I'm calling this one the Myth Seeker team, and I think there's a good reason for that. Obviously, it involves Seeker. Seeker is essential to making this team work. Much like we were talking about in my last video, not every champion is replaceable. Seeker is not going to be replaceable in this. He is essential to making this work, but everybody else has some kind of, alternate variations on it. One of the good things about this comp is you have two DPS champions in it, so it brings a little bit more flexibility in how you're going to want to run this team. Now, it's not naturally affinity friendly. If you want it to be, you do need to bring in a debuff blocker, but in all cases, this is still going to be a very, very solid team. I'm not sure it quite has the same potential as the last team we looked at, the Myth Heiress, but it is still very, very good. So before we get into it too deeply, I do want to shout out my Patreons. Can't do this work without them. Honestly, just fantastic people. And then the only other thing I want to remind you is hit that subscribe and notification bell and like the video if you like it. If you don't like it, you know what? You can click the dislike button. That's okay too. But yeah, we're going to get into this really quickly here. So also remember in the comments, if you like this team, let Bluntguts know. Give them a little shout out, give them a little love in there. Just say thanks for making this comp, because honestly, it's a team effort out here, guys. So I make some, you make some, but we all bring it for everybody else to benefit from. And I think that's the way it should go. So anyway, let's go ahead. We're going to look at the champions really quickly, and then we're going to go and do the run. Okay, guys, this is the team that we have here. You can see I'm going to be bringing in for this one Draco, just, kind of a pretty standard damage dealer, right? He's one of the best. He brings poisons, brings the right debuff. So he kind of really showcases the comp the best. That's why I'm using him. As always, you don't need to use a legendary like Draco. You don't have to use Draco at all. There's any DPS can work for this build. And the other DPS slot we're going to be bringing in is Underpriest Brogni. Now, I'm bringing in Brogni primarily to block debuffs. I want to show this as an affinity friendly build, but of course you don't have to. When you're not facing, basically when you don't face spirit affinity, you can really use whoever you want. There's an accuracy debuff from I think the blue affinity and a decreased attack from the red, or vice versa. Those are annoying, but they're not game changing, so you don't really have to worry about that. The one thing you do have to worry about with this comp is the stun. Demytha, the way that this goes in order, she's not in a position to cleanse the stun off of anybody. So that is definitely going to be the negative part of this, right? You definitely need to bring in someone to block the debuffs, or you need to allow one of your DPS champions to take the stun. The first three champions I have in this composition, none of them can take the stun. If they take the stun, it'll throw things out of whack. We need Seeker to do the turn meter boost at the right time. We need Khatun to do the same thing. And we need Demytha to use the block damage and the extend at the right time. If any of them get stunned, that'll throw it off and completely ruin the comp. Now, there's obviously ways to get around that, but I'm going to tell you it's a little bit tricky. And part of the reason is because of Seeker. Let's look at the champions real quick, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on why that can be a bit of a problem and why I probably recommend, if you're going to run this comp, use a debuff blocker like Underpriest Brogni in this team. We'll go ahead and start with the builds. Now, most of these builds are going to be very similar to the run I did before with the Myth Seeker. I'm just kind of moving stuff around as needed. So let's start with Demytha. You can see here I have pretty much the exact same build. 274 speed, some HP, defense, a little bit of attack, crit rate and crit damage. I want to showcase what she can do. If I was just building this on my own, I probably wouldn't waste good resources on getting her with that damage, because she only has one attack. It does decent damage, but it's nothing, game breaking. So unless I was fully optimizing, I probably wouldn't bother with that. Then we're going to have Seeker in here, obviously. Now, Seeker, we do need to talk about it for a little bit. First off, you can see with a 182 speed. I will have this comp linked in the description and the pinned comment of this video. So if you want to know the specific speeds, you can check that out, and it'll have them right there. It'll have it in the calculator so you can, manipulate and see what works and what doesn't. But these are in the range of what you can use. Obviously, I have them built fairly well here. Now, here's the issue with the stun. There's a Seeker has a skill, this passive ability, Dark Blood, where he will heal and place an increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns when he's hit with a critical hit. Now, you might say, that's not an issue, except for the fact the clan boss likes to avoid people with an increased defense buff. So if this goes on to your DPS champions, and they're the ones going the slowest, so chances are that buff might stay on them for the stun, then that can be a real problem, because at that point, the clan boss is going to try and hit somebody else. Because we get the extension from Demytha, those buffs become 3-turn debuff or 3-turn buffs, and they will stay on the DPS champions, which means the stun's going to go to somebody else. This is where it can be a bit of a problem getting that stun to go right. So I really do recommend bringing in a block debuff champion. I mean, it doesn't matter whether that's like a Grizzled Jarl, whether that's a Brogni, obviously, or anybody else, anybody that can block the debuff consistently, but it does need to be on a 3-turn cooldown. That's the key thing. Blind Seer is the one I was trying to think of there, but it does need to be on a 3-turn cooldown. That's going to be the biggest issue with it. So just kind of keep that in mind, because Seeker can throw things off. And if that happens, if that increased defense buff goes up, your DPS champions won't be the stun target. You're going to need to go somewhere else, and you're going to need to be able to block the debuff when that happens. So keep that in mind. The other champions we're going to be using in this, I believe we covered that already. We are going to be using Draco here. Draco is going at a very slow speed, 146. So the speeds are pretty attainable outside of the top two. Demytha obviously is going very fast. And the other champion that's going very fast is going to be Khatun. Now I'm using Khatun with that aura. That aura is really nice to help lower the speeds that we need. And even with that, 256 is the speed that we have to get to. Now, you can obviously use anybody else that has the same kind of turn meter boost or speed buff. An apothecary works just fine in this type of a role instead. You'll just give up the speed aura. I think the speed aura is worth using Khatun instead of somebody like apothecary. So we have Khatun in there. Now, I do, to help avoid where the stun goes. Actually, I didn't even bother taking it. Yeah, we're blocking the debuff, so it doesn't matter. One thing you can do to help guide the stun is take Steadfast instead of one of the other masteries. That can obviously help, but it's not essential. And then the very last thing we're going to be doing is taking in Underpriest Brogni here, because, he's a boss and he does good work for us, both offensively and defensively. I have him built pretty well, I would say, at 169 speed, which is really nice because you can really stack up the offense as was a result. So that's the team. Now, one of the cool things, you can actually set this team to a full auto run, which is pretty dope. All you got to do is set the cooldowns of everything. I don't even think there's a lot to be done. I am setting Demytha's. We just need to open with that A1 and get the A2 going second. After that, everybody is full auto, and it will work and stay affinity friendly, which is pretty ridiculous. So that's a very cool thing. So let's go ahead. We're going to jump in this run. We'll kind of walk you through what's going on, and then we'll skip ahead towards the end so you can see the full damage. So obviously we're getting that speed boost from Khatun right off the bat. That buff is really what we're talking about there. Because of Demytha extending that means everybody's moving 30% faster than they normally would, which is really, really essential to getting the most out of this type of a team. Otherwise, we do get a little turn meter boost from Khatun as well, which is helpful for, staying in sync. And then obviously we're relying on Seeker's big turn meter boost to get us to that next stage. Now, because Demytha's going on a 3-1 ratio, Khatun's going on a 3-1 ratio, they obviously are really fast. That's why they're going 274, 256 speed, because they have to take 3 turns for every one the clan boss takes, which is just an insane amount. But because we have those 2 boosters in there, we're able to do that. Now, this is not my favorite team. I'm still partial to the Myth Eris one, mostly due to its natural affinity balance there, right? I would love to be able to use an Eris in this type of a comp instead of a Khatun. Then I just have to make sure Eris doesn't take the stun. That way I could bring in a genuine DPS instead of Underpriest Brogni and not have to worry about where the stun goes. Because I think, honestly, because of Seeker, you do need to block those debuffs. Now, that's always tricky though, right? It's a totally different tune because we're not getting that turn meter boost to bring an Eris into this kind of comp. It's not compatible. So we are stuck with Khatun in here. We're stuck with an apothecary. And I say stuck because honestly, they're amazing champions. It's not really a bad thing to have in there. And this team does crazy, crazy damage anyhow. We're still going at incredible speeds, getting a lot of attacks in, and we're able to get a lot of damage up on the boss here. One of the things I could do too is ensure that Draco uses his A3 every time, the decreased defense in the weekend. Sometimes he doesn't like to do that if it's already on the boss, and honestly, we would get better results if I did that. So that's, one little twist we could do to make sure it stays up, because you can see it's not up right now. That would definitely improve our damage some, but I think you guys are going to get a very good idea of how good this team could be, how much damage we're able to do. We're already doing over 1 million a turn right now, which is a pretty good barometer for being a solid team. And obviously there's room to improve this as you go along. So anyway, that's the build. I think this is actually really smart, really nice. I think there's ways to make this even better as we go along, and I'd be really interested to see how that happens, right? I feel with a little bit of speed changes, you could maybe work with like someone like an Eris or a Tuhanarok instead. So there's definitely some options there, but I'll get off the screen. You guys will enjoy the music, and then we'll come back at the end. $65 million's pretty good. I mean, that's so close to a one key team right there. You guys can see this team has a ton of potential. When you can put it this kind of numbers, I mean, that's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. Look, and again, you only need one champion to make it work in Demytha. Well, I guess two. It's a Myth Seeker team, right? You do need Seeker, you do need Demytha, but neither of them are legendaries. You don't need any legendaries to make this team work. That's a pretty remarkable squad, I would say. So definitely a cool build, and yeah, a lot of props to Bluntguts for showing us this one. So anyways, guys, that's a pretty fun team. I think it's a really awesome build. You can see we got a lot of damage out of that. Not quite the same level as the Myth Era, so you can see there are some differences there, but not everybody has a Deacon. If you don't, well, you can use this type of team instead. So there are definitely options out there for ways you can build these teams. I have more of them coming, but I wanted to get this one done, get this one shown to you, so we'll have more coming in the next few days. If you're liking this stuff, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, let me know what you guys think, and do give some props to Bluntguts for passing this one along to us, because I think it's a really, really cool build. And don't forget that thing about Seeker with his passive ability. That is something that will mess up your runs and have them fall short. So you're definitely going to want to take precautions against that. If you don't bring in a block debuff champion, you're just kind of rolling the dice with the RNG that the stun will go to one of your DPS champions. That's just kind of how it is. So hopefully that'll work out well for everybody, but no guarantees on that. In any case, that's all we got for today. So till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.